All right, we are being live streamed right now. So we're going to let our people in. I'm letting in Doug and I'm letting in Pat. And we are beginning our Tech Support Tuesday.
Yay!
There we are on the YouTubes. And here comes everybody. Hello, Pat. Hello, Doug.
Hi, everyone.
So great to see you again. We're back for Tech Support Tuesday, number 31. It is 10 a.m. on the 28th of September, 2021. And we are here, Digital Helpmates is here, live to answer your tech questions. We've gotten a couple of doozies today that I hope that we can answer. You might actually stump the tech tutor for once. That's always a challenge. And just some quick introductions, as I always do. Today I have with me on our class, we have Mac guru, Steve Olfest, who joins us from Denver, Colorado. We also have our cross-platform aficionado, Anthony, who actually is now coming to us from Bremerton, Washington. He was living in El Paso, Texas up until how many weeks ago? 2-3 weeks ago?
3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I'm still very fresh in Bremerton. It's good to be here.
And then we also have Miss Dana Hillman, who is a lovely woman coming to us from Arizona, Tombstone, Arizona, and she is an expert on Google apps, PCs, and Android devices. So we are here to answer all your tech questions. And we also have a really interesting class today. We talk about, what are the big issues that we're seeing among our clients as we're tech tutoring. We talk about this for weeks ahead of time. And the one that really stuck out to all of us was about web browsing. This is a very common question. For some people, it's as basic as, what is a web browser? I don't even know what you're talking about when you say web browser. But then other people know what a web browser is, but they don't really know how to use it efficiently. They don't know how to get to the places they need to go quickly and easily. So we're going to share with you our favorite tips and tricks so that you can quickly get on the internet, get what you need to get done, and get off and get back to your real life. So that's going to be the theme of the second half of our class today. Hey, Al, thanks for joining us. So I do see some familiar faces here. I see Doug. Hello, Doug. And I see Pat. Hello, Pat. And I see Al. So maybe some more people will join us as we go forward in the class. The only announcement that I have every class is the next Tech Support Tuesday will be October 26th, 4 weeks from today. So you may want to make a note of that, put that in your calendar, 10 a.m. Of course, you'll get the announcement, the invite beforehand in your email. And we haven't yet decided what that class topic will be. If you have any wishes or desires of what you'd like to be taught on, please let us know. You can email us at info@digitalhelpmates.com and we will consider all suggestions. So, all right, you guys ready to get into the meat of today's class?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so we got a really interesting question from Doug. So Doug, you're going to be first up today. And I have to say, I am a little bit afraid that you're going to stump me on this one. But that's a good thing, right? Got to have a little variety in here once in a while. So Doug has a really interesting problem that he says, in the last couple of weeks, when I wake my computer, I occasionally find one or more of these file info things on my desktop. I cannot close them or do anything with them. I usually have to restart the computer to get rid of them. What are they? And I'm going to kind of show you this screenshot here that that he shared with me. So can everybody see that screenshot there?
Indeed.
Yeah.
I can
kind of like just a little box that looks like maybe, you can change the name or whatever. Doug, do you have anything to add about this? I'm really curious about this.
Not really. Like credit card screenshots, 921, that's a screenshot that I occasionally use when I need to look at my credit card number without digging out my wallet. And that other one is another file that I have but I mean, they basically are something linked to files that I have but I don't know what makes them show up, and I can't close them without shutting down the computer.
And so they're just there kind of, I assume that that's your desktop image in the background, right?
Yeah, it's just a small shot of my desktop. Yeah.
So they're just kind of floating there in these sort of
Yeah,
semi-transparent
and
boxes.
I can't move them around. They're just there.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to stop share, and I actually am going to turn to Steve for help on this one because he has a very deep understanding of Mac and Apple after working with Apple products for how many years? 20, 30?
Yeah,
Something like
probably
that.
30 years. But yeah, no, this is like the file name panel that you see when you open up Pages at the top, and you can actually rename your file and locate where it's going to be stored and add a tag to it, which is basically a way to search for the file. So the operating system you're using is
Yeah, here, I'm gonna show you this right here, what he's talking about. So this is a brand new Pages document here, and he's absolutely right. You click on the title to title it, and this is what you see. So it's like you're getting that little snippet, but just floating by itself in the middle of your desktop, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And are those all Pages documents, by the way, that are coming up?
No, neither. One is a screenshot and one is I forget what it was.
Screenshot. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So those same things would show up in preview. So the window that Laura was referring to was in Pages, but you can do the exact same thing in preview. You can go up and get more information about the file, rename the location, add a tag to it. All of that happens in preview as well. So those files are likely related, or those information panels are likely related to opening those files in preview.
But I can't close them.
And if you go up to the Apple in the upper left-hand corner and you go to Force Quit, does it show you that preview is running?
Well, I mean, I don't have any of those little clips showing right now, but it does show preview running.
Okay,
currently.
so I think we're narrowing down what the issue is. Preview is a part of the operating system that allows you to display PDFs and screenshots and anything else that you may, graphic images, things like that, that may be a picture of something. That's what preview does. And so if you are using an older operating system, preview gets updated with the operating system, and there may be an issue with the older version of preview that's running with the older version of the operating system that you're running on your computer. So of course, if we were at Apple, what would they tell us? Update your operating system.
That's the very first thing they would
say. There's no other
say.
way to fix preview. It sounds to me like you're having an error with preview, and there's no other way to fix it. You can't go into like Apple's website and say update only preview. That you can't do that. It can only update when you update your operating system.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next thing for you to try is, when you see those things show up, try going up to the Apple in the upper left-hand corner, seeing if under the Force Quit window, preview is running, and asking it to preview to Force Quit.
Yeah, especially if preview is red, then that would give you a hint that preview is stuck, that it's bugging out.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow. Can we just give Steve a round of applause for that one? That was like, that really required a big breadth of knowledge to get there, because I couldn't quite get there when I was seeing your email this morning. So thank you for that, Steve. Do we have any other questions? That's the only one that we had in advance today. So Al, Pat, or Doug, do you have any additional questions, things that are vexing you? Go ahead, Pat.
I've been having trouble for a while now, and I have thought about calling you and asking you to give me a hand. I got stuck in my mail program on my Mac, and I'm all updated.
Okay.
I've just got too many mailboxes, plus everything is now going through the cloud, and I didn't want that, but that's what's happening. It's all in the cloud. And anyway, I probably need more attention than we have time for today, but that's my issue at the time. I want to clean up my my mail program.
Okay. So just to clarify, it sounds like you're saying mail is kind of going slow, or is it just visually cluttered?
It's the whole thing is visually cluttered. I've got too many mailboxes.
Okay.
And they're in Apple, and I don't know how to get them out.
Okay. And so when you say mailboxes,
And they're in the iCloud, is what I'm trying to say.
so it's your iCloud email. Is that what you mean when you say they're in the iCloud?
Yeah.
It's your iCloud
I didn't
email.
want it to be in the cloud, but I couldn't get, I should have come when I couldn't do this. I couldn't get an outgoing mail, and I was using Gmail. And then anyway, it just got, with all the updates that we've been doing, it just got all convoluted. It's a mess.
Okay.
Really,
Well,
yeah.
iCloud can only keep iCloud messages in the cloud. So if you have a Gmail account, that is totally separate.
No,
from
that's all
iCloud.
separate now.
It's,
I do Gmail on the browser. I don't have it going through the mail service.
you mean
I have it on.
through your mail client, Apple Mail, right?
Yeah, I don't have it going through Apple Mail.
Okay, so you only have iCloud going through Apple Mail, is that right? And then
Yes.
you go onto a web browser to check your Gmail account.
Right.
Okay, and so the problem is that there's too many mailboxes. In other words, it's one iCloud account, but you're making separate mailboxes that have like rules attached to them, or they're smart mailboxes or things like that that are filtering.
There's all of the above.
That are filtering your iCloud email.
And with as each update that we've had, the rules for those boxes have gotten all messed up, and so nothing's working.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it does sound like maybe you just need to get in there and do a reset of your mailboxes and redo them. I used to use mailboxes with rules, and I switched away from there a little while ago to smart mailboxes. Now we all have our favorites. I think Steve prefers mailboxes with rules, whereas I prefer the smart mailboxes. The main difference is that when you set up a mailbox with rules, the rules are going to move stuff out of your inbox and into a folder. So it's physically going to, well, not physically, but it's going to change locations. And so if you delete that mailbox, you will also delete the mail within it. That's one of the reasons I also like smart folders. Smart folders don't actually contain the mail in them. You set them up to have certain parameters of what you want to see in that mailbox, but really what it is it's like a saved search. And so you're seeing them within that folder that is a saved search, but they're also still in your inbox. So you can delete the smart folders and it does not affect the mail at all. It just gets rid of that saved search and you can create a new one. So in some ways it's easier, in my opinion, to have smart mailboxes, because then when they get messed up or you just want a clean break or whatever, you just delete them all and just start over again. If you delete regular folders or folders with rules attached, you might actually delete some emails that are important. So yeah, it sounds like we might need to just kind of get in there and do, an hour or two in your mailbox and help you clean that up. I love organizing projects, organizing digital stuff. Ooh, that just like scratches an itch for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, Dana's like,
I
"You're
was
crazy."
amazed at how much Apple had saved of past mail. 5, 6 years of mail had been saved. And I didn't know that. Well, once it went into the cloud, it was using space in the
Mhm.
cloud, and I didn't want it there. So I've been removing all those old mail. Anyway,
Yeah.
that was a surprise.
Well, and the mail itself is tiny. Like the messages themselves, even if you have thousands and thousands and thousands of messages, the space that they're going to take up is going to be very, very small. What takes up space is the attachments. So
Oh,
if you actually want to reduce the amount of iCloud space that mail is using, you can sort your mail by attachments, and you can just delete the big attachments off of some of those mails, or if you don't need those mails anymore, delete those mails with big attachments, pictures, usually it's like just logos, like in somebody's mail signature or something like that. Well, those aren't usually that big, but pictures. Okay, someone emails you a picture that can actually take up a surprising amount of room. So these are all things that we can do with you, and still have that mail in the cloud, because the only problem with not having it in the cloud is then, well, what happens if your computer gets destroyed or the hard drive fails and all of that mail only lives on your computer? Then you lose all those mail messages.
that's fine. 6 years ago, I don't care. I can't remember anyway.
That's great that you have that level of detachment with it. I actually really admire that, to be honest. I hear that from a lot of my clients these days. It's like, if you lose your pictures, is this going to be a big deal? And they're like, nah.
That's true.
Us young
I'm now
people.
throwing pictures away.
Yes,
It's
us
all-
younger people, I should say. I'm not young anymore, but younger people are like, oh my gosh, our pictures, worst thing in the world if they disappear. We have a totally different feeling on it, right? Am I right, Anthony?
Yeah.
It's like the worst thing
Oh
in the
yeah.
world.
Oh yeah.
Digital
Yeah, I try
hoarder.
I try to keep every photo I take, even the bad ones.
Yeah, it's hard to get rid of them sometimes. And we don't have anything on film anymore. So when we lose our pictures, I actually didn't quite understand how photos worked several years ago, when I changed phones, and I lost about 3 years of photos that were right at the time my youngest daughter was born. So I actually, unless I printed those, which I did, fortunately, I printed a few important ones, but I've lost all of those photos. So
Well, from the pedestal on which I now reside, I realize that at the end, you really only need a few pictures.
yeah,
You
it's true.
just a few.
Yep, that is very true. Most of our pictures end up in a thrift store somewhere, and nobody wants them, right?
No.
Okay, Al, did you have any questions for us today? You're our PC person. We have 2 PC people here that can help you, but nope, you're doing great.
It did actually ask something in the chat, and it was is preview only with Mac computers, and Steve was able to confirm that it was. So
Yeah.
that was question answered.
Yep. Preview is a nice little small app that both can open PDFs and JPEGs and all sorts of things like that very quickly, and only exists on Apple. It's true. Okay, well, we did get a couple questions from Dana is at a coffee shop, and before this class started, she walked around and said, does anybody have any computer questions? Anybody? Which was kind of great. So we could probably hit on one of those before we move on to our web browsing. I do want to give us plenty of time to get to our content today, but maybe we'll just do just one of those real quick that's pretty easy. And I thought the one that you sent from, we're going to call him John Doe because he prefers to remain anonymous. So John Doe says, I have an iMac all-in-one that is about 9 years old. I don't want to upgrade, in other words, get a new computer. They're supposed to last forever, right? But I would like to improve the speed. I uploaded some voiceover programs years ago, but I got rid of them or thought I did. How do I know for sure that they're gone? And what else can I do to improve speed? So this is a question that comes up a lot. How can we get an older computer? In 9 years, that's getting up there, even for a Mac. Maybe each one of us Mac people can give our favorite tip to improve speed. Steve, what's yours? You're holding something up there.
So actually, I got a 9-year-old computer sitting to my left right now. And what do we just put into it? A solid state drive.
Mhm.
So the number one thing you can do to any computer, Mac or PC, is replace an old spinning hard drive with a solid state drive. The reason it's called solid state is because everything is stored on chips. It's solid. There's no moving parts. The reason that a traditional hard drive is slower than a solid state drive is that a traditional hard drive spins.
Mhm.
And so there's a little reader on top of a spinning hard drive that has to pick up information off of that. And that takes time to do that. You may remember not so long ago when you would start up your computer and you would wait and wait and wait for it to go. Basically, that's the computer getting all of the information off of that spinning hard drive into the RAM, the memory on the computer, so then you can actually work on the computer. So if you have a solid state drive, that process is so much faster because it can load that information from the chips on the solid state drive into the memory so that you can work on everything. So that's the number one thing you can do to speed up an older computer.
Mhm.
Plus hard drives, all hard drives will fail at some point. I always tell people that if you never put oil in your car, your car has a lot of spinning parts, right? The spinning parts in your car would stop spinning because there's no way to lubricate it anymore. Well, a hard drive, you can't put oil into it. So at some point, it just can't spin anymore. You can't lubricate a hard drive. So all hard drives will stop spinning at some point.
Mhm.
So over time, they start, of course, when they're new, they spin very fast. And over time, they don't spin as fast anymore. And at some point, they'll just stop spinning entirely. So always a good thing to think about. If you do not own a computer with a solid state drive right now, a good thing to think about upgrading to if you're not going to replace the computer entirely.
Right. If you can replace that hard drive. And a lot of the newer Macs you cannot, but of course the newer Macs already have solid state hard drives in them anyway. And the average age of one of those spinny hard drives is about 5 years. So if you have one that's older than 5 years, you're kind of on borrowed time. Just kind of keep that in mind. So my favorite tip, and I've done this so many times for clients, and he kind of alludes to it in here about I installed these things years ago, but I don't know if they're really gone. I like to do what I call like a surgical clean off of your computer, because sometimes I find people have just used the migration assistant from one computer to the next, to the next, to the next for like 20 years worth of, however many Macs that is. And there's all this junk left over on there. There's incompatible files. There's maybe some corrupt fonts. Who knows what's on there? So I like to surgically go in, pick out what you want to save, put it on a flash drive, and do a complete reinstall, wipe the whole thing and put the most recent operating system or at least the most recent one it can handle, and then put those back on. That can help hugely with speed. And, you're not sitting here worried about what's still left on there that you've forgotten about. You also have to re-download all the apps from scratch, reinstall them either from their DVD or from the online source. So that can take a little time to kind of compile all that information together, but it's, in my opinion, worth it. How about you, Anthony? Do you have any favorite tips for speeding up an old computer, old Mac?
Yeah, absolutely. And Steve touched on this already. You know, he talked about using this SSD, the solid state hard drive. Computers have two different types of memory. Kind of like your brain, you have your long-term memory and your short-term memory. So what Steve was talking about is the long-term memory, the hard drive where all of your data is stored. But he also alluded to the other type of memory, which is your short-term, also called RAM in a computer. And that is what your computer can access in that moment. It's everything that your computer can think about. It's almost the thinking capacity to a degree. And so upgrading that, especially if you have an older Mac, the ability to upgrade the RAM should be there, depending on what Mac you have. The newer ones, everything is soldered in, so you can't upgrade those parts. But in the older ones, you can. And so if your computer only has, you know, one stick of RAM, where it could have two, if it only has 4 gigs, where it could have 8 or 16, adding that extra RAM, which is not an expensive part or an expensive upgrade, can increase the speed and just all the little things that your computer can think about at any one moment. So you can increase the longevity that way too. So you'll speed up your computer with the SSD, you'll speed up the computer and how much it can think about with the RAM upgrade. And then, as Laura mentioned, you know, getting all of those old programs and all of that junk out of there is going to free up the resources for your computer to do what's actually going to work.
Yeah.
So I think all three of those things would be a big effect. And the only one thing I want to add is you will eventually hit limitations. There are parts of the computer that cannot be upgraded. And once you are at capacity for that particular component, it might be a soldered in CPU, which is the main thinking processor of your system. If you're maxing that out, or it's old and can't keep up anymore, sometimes they get burned out if they run too hot or too long, then that is a hard limitation, and it might be time for a new system at that point. But those old Macs, they have really nice processors, especially depending on what model you bought, and it's really easy to keep them alive and keep pumping in some longevity into them with those upgrades that we've all mentioned.
Yeah. Al actually mentioned he might do these to his old HP. One advantage over PC laptops is that you can, at least as far as I know, still swap out, you know, the hard drive and the RAM and all of that. With Macs, I believe the year was 2015 when they started soldering all that stuff in. Yeah. So, you know, pre 2015 MacBook Pro, you're going to be okay for the most part. But anything newer than that, the RAM and the hard drive are not removable. So.
And for a PC, there's a lot of PCs that have gone that way too.
Really?
If you have a Surface Book, you can't upgrade that. You can't upgrade the components inside. Those are all soldered in. Essentially, the thinner the computer gets, the more likelihood that those pieces can't be upgraded. Yeah. Having the modular components take up space in the computer, and so, you know, all those Ultrabooks, the really, really thin laptops, the Chromebooks, anything like that, you're not going to be able to take the pieces out and put in new ones.
Yeah. I know, say what you will about why Mac decided to start soldering things in. People certainly have given them a lot of flack for doing that, but it saves cost and it saves space, you know, and people keep wanting to have thinner and thinner computers and better computers for less money. So this is the direction they went. So, well, it is 10:29. So I think that means it's time for us to get on to our teaching portion of class. So I'm very excited about teaching you this today. So we are each going to be talking a little bit about web browsing. And so I just want to talk a little bit about the problems that I see sometimes. This is why we're teaching you this today, why we're bringing this up. So oftentimes when I'm visiting a client, one of the things we always do is open up a web browser. You know, sometimes they're using it to check their email, but oftentimes it's for, you know, all sorts of different reasons we have to go into a web browser. And some of the issues that I see are, first of all, some people don't know about bookmarks. You know, they every time they want to go to a website, they will type in the name from scratch, or maybe they'll open up a new window and they'll see on the frequently visited websites, they'll see that website, Amazon or whatever that they want to go to, and they'll click on that, and that's how they go there. And that's okay. But the problem is that those will go away. They're not permanent. when you clear your cache, all of those frequently visited sites are suddenly going to be gone. And you do have to clear your cache sometimes. So the solution to that is bookmarks. A bookmark is, think of the internet is the biggest book in the entire universe that you could ever imagine. And so, you want to visit certain pages of that book. So you put a bookmark in there. You don't own that page. You haven't downloaded that page. That page is still being updated by the entity that owns it. You just are putting a bookmark in that book so that you can quickly go back and visit that page as many times as you want in its updated format. So the most common problem I see is people don't know what bookmarks are, and they don't have any bookmarks at all saved, or they just have the default bookmarks that the web browser comes with, which are really not valuable. It's like, they have companies like Bing and Yahoo and whatever, that throwing them some money to stick their bookmarks on their default bookmarks. You don't need to keep any of those defaults. And the other thing I see is people relying, instead of using bookmarks, they rely on tabs. So if they know what a tab is, they're like, oh, this is really cool. I can open up a tab and have more than one page open. And then they keep all those tabs open all the time. And then they're like, why is my computer running so slow? And it's because each one of those tabs has information that's being constantly updated. They have animations on them and the ads and the graphics, and it's taking up huge amounts of resources on your computer. And then what happens when your computer crashes or you accidentally close that browser and all those tabs go away and you don't have any of those locations saved? That's like a major big deal, right? So that's not ideal to have a gazillion tabs open, but you need to know how to get where you're going and get there fairly quickly, right? There's also something called a reading list that some people get confused with bookmarks. They'll say, oh yeah, here's my bookmarks over here. We're going to go into what a reading list is versus bookmarks. It's a really useful thing, but it's not a bookmark. It's not a great way to go back and visit that website, that Amazon site, or whatever that you go to all the time. And then, some people even know all of these things, and they even use their little favorites bar to show their bookmarks, but they're like, well, I can only fit 5 favorites on there. What good is that? So they don't know tips and tricks for how they can maximize that favorites bar and have all of their bookmarks up there. So we're going to go into all of these things to help you organize your web browsing a little bit better, get to where you're going to go. And each one of us, I'm just giving you the overview. Each one of you tutors, Steve, Dana, and Anthony, are going to teach you a little bit about that. So let's start with Steve. Steve is going to teach us a little bit about the favorites bar and about reading lists. And we've decided we're going to demonstrate all of these in Chrome. Chrome is probably the most commonly used web browser at this point, but all of these concepts, for the most part, they do apply to all the other web browsers. You'll just have to kind of maybe consult with your tech tutor to figure out, if you can't figure it out yourself, how to translate these tips to your favorite web browser. Okay, so Steve, you can go ahead and take it over. And I will turn on screen sharing for you too. And Steve, I think you are muted.
Okay, can you hear me? All right,
Yeah.
We're gonna, okay, so we're looking at Chrome today, and most of these concepts, we're looking at a Mac here, but most of these concepts will apply to a PC using Chrome as well. That's one of the reasons we wanted to demonstrate Chrome here. So first of all, I have this this bar across the top here. This is called the favorites bar. And if you don't see that bar showing up here, there is a view menu up the top there, and you can bring that up, and it will say always show bookmarks bar across the top there. So if you don't see that bar showing up there, you can go under the view menu and make that show up there. Now, when you first open a Chrome web page, you see some saved websites down here, and there is a place here to add a new shortcut. This is where you can actually enter in a website if you want to have it show up on this Chrome homepage here, if you want. And that is a type of bookmark, but what we're really referring to are the favorites bar bookmarks that show up across the top here. So let me jump into, and by the way, a lot of the things that you'll see on this Google homepage will be put there automatically because they are websites that you have visited recently. And you'll see when you click on the 3 dots under there, you'll have the option to remove them if you need to. So let me jump into the CNN website here. And let's say this is a website that we wanted to save for us to come back to at a later time. So a bookmark is a saved pointer to go back to that entire website again. So in order to save this, to save a bookmark for this particular website, there's always more than one way to do that. One thing we could do is go up to the bookmarks menu at the top, and it will say bookmark at the very top there. It says bookmark this tab. The other thing we could do is go to the star in the address bar. The address bar shows the address for the website that we're on. In this case, it shows CNN.com, and on the right-hand side of that address bar, it says bookmark this tab. And so we can click on that little star there, and we can click on add bookmark. Okay. When we click on add bookmark, it's going to ask us where do we want to put that bookmark. And if we want it to show up across this bar up at the top here, we're just going to choose the bookmarks bar, or also known as the favorites bar. If you're using a different type of web browser, here in Chrome, it's called the bookmarks bar, and that would add it as a saved site across the top there. So that is a bookmark, or adding a new bookmark. Now, let's say we were reading a particular story on a news website. So if I opened up a story on this news website and I wanted to go back and read it at a later time, I would add it to my reading list. So I can click on any particular story here. I'll just pick a random story that shows up down here, and we'll jump into that story there. And let's say I wanted to save it to go back and read it at a later time. I would go up to that star in the upper right-hand corner of that address bar, and it says add to reading list there. And this actually saves this story so that I could go back to that reading list and I could look at it at a later time. So, so if I go back to I can view my reading list under the view menu here, and I can go back and read that at a later time there.
Now, Steve, one thing that I think is important to distinguish between a bookmark and a reading list, because both of them save the web page or this article or the story or whatever that you can view for a later time. A reading list will actually save it for offline viewing. So it actually saves it as it is at that moment, you know, in a place where it doesn't matter if you have an internet connection or not, you can go back and read it. A bookmark is not like that. A bookmark will require an internet connection, and it's going to view the most recently updated version of that website live.
Yeah, so I'm in this reading list and I can see it here. And by the way, if you are synchronizing your Chrome web browser among various devices, you can go back to your Chrome web browser on a different device and look under that same reading list if you're logged into your same Google account, and find that same story to read again.
That's great. Yeah, I actually ended up using reading lists in a really strange way recently. It wasn't recently, it was, I was going camping and we were going to play backgammon, and I couldn't remember the rules for backgammon. So I looked them up online. I knew I wasn't going to have an internet connection out there. So I saved the backgammon rules to a reading list. And then I could view it wherever I wanted to. So you could think of it as like, I don't know, let's say you have a bunch of articles that you don't have time to read right now, but you're going to be on an airplane later and you want to spend some time reading them when you're on the airplane. Perfect use for the reading list. Some people email themselves articles to read later. You could just save them to a reading list. That's great. Okay, well, thank you, Steve. Any questions about Steve's presentation there? Doug has a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Doug. I think you're still muted.
So you save this article to a reading list. Don't you have to open Chrome to be able to get to the reading list? So if you're in an area where you're not having internet reception, how do you open Chrome?
Chrome as an application will still open. You
Okay.
just won't be able to connect to any other websites, but the items in your reading list will show up.
Okay.
Yep. And in fact, if you use Google Sync feature, then that reading list should sync over to your phone as well. So you can save it on your computer and then open it on your phone.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, we're going to move on. And by the way, I know it's a little bit hard to see what we're doing. I'll get to you in just one second, Al. What we're doing on web browsers. Just know that I am recording this. This is going to be on YouTube, and I'm featuring kind of a zoomed in view for our recording. And if you wanted to try that, zooming in a little bit more on what the presenter is doing, you can click on View Options, and then there's a drop-down menu. When we're sharing, you'll see that up there at the top of your Zoom screen. Zoom options will be on the right, and you can choose follow presenter's pointer. You can do 100%, you could do 150%, and then wherever the pointer goes, it'll follow on that screen and be a little bit more zoomed in. But I am asking Anthony and Dana to reduce their screen resolution a little bit so that we can have a zoomed in view. It's always a challenge when we're trying to show you something on a browser. Okay, so next, oh, I'm sorry, Al, your question, go ahead.
Yes. What happens when that favorites bar or bookmark bar gets filled up? There's, you have too many items on there. Where do they go?
I should have paid you for that segue because that is exactly what Dana is going to be teaching us. But you'll have to wait because Dana is last. No, she's not. She's next. She's next. I did pay him for that segue. See, I'll give you the money under the table later, Al. Dana, what do we do?
Tag teaming.
I know that bar, you're right. It's only so long. And when Steve tried to save that CNN site, it had like a gajillion words on it. It's going to take up like a third of that bar. So like, what do you do?
Oh my gosh, let me show you. All right. So I am actually going to use one of my profiles that doesn't have a lot of things on it at the moment. Can everybody see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So as you can tell, my bookmarks bar is practically empty. And so when you save, like Al mentioned, sometimes your bookmarks bar fills up. And so I'm going to show you using Steve's wonderful method of the star, because, whatever makes my life easy, I'm okay with that. I'm going to add the bookmark. And it has all this long name. I don't want that. I know what Skillshare is. So Skillshare.com is an online sharing program. And I am just going to change the name to that. And that's it. Now, I have other places, other websites that I like to learn for free learning. So instead of just saving it to my folder, which I can, it gives you that option, I'm going to click on more. And at the bottom left of that little window, I am going to click on new folder. And I am going to type just education. And that's it. And that's where my Skillshare is going to save it. And you can see my education folder is on my bookmarks bar. If you notice, I also have one for bills. So right now I only have one thing in there, but for those that I don't have auto pay saved up for, I can put it in that bills folder. IMDb is an image movie database type of website that has all information about your favorite movies, favorite actors, all that other stuff. If I wanted to add a movie theater in the area that I lived in, I could create a folder for movies and put that in folders. So Al, if you have something that can be created in a folder, I would recommend that you create the folder either through saving the website and then creating that folder, or if you go to the very end to the 3 dots, you can click on that, click on bookmarks, and then click on bookmark manager. And this is where you can go and just move things around in whatever order you want them to, either here or here. So if you see it's a line, it will go in between the folders, or if it's highlighted, it's going to go within that folder.
So you're dragging and dropping
then-
these things to move them around, right?
Yes, absolutely. Dragging and dropping. That's always,
Mhm.
best. So if you want to create a new folder, you can add the new folder here as well. You can also sort by name, or like Laura said, you can drag and drop. And that to me is just easy peasy. And I'm all about the easy.
And you can even drag and drop them within the favorites bar. You can like move them around in the favorites bar, right?
Yep. Yep. And if you see up here where I'm highlighting, I'm hovering over it, I can move that over, or actually I put it in
You
education.
just filed it.
I just filed it, but that's okay, because if I wanted to, I can drag it up and put it up there. Look at that. I took it from a folder down here and put it back up on my bookmarks bar up there. It's so easy. If you make a mistake, it's okay. You can always undo it. You can always rearrange it. I'm just geeking out right now because I do like my bookmarks bar.
I love folders in the favorites bar. That's, sometimes it's kind of like a secondary step. The first step is like just introducing somebody to the favorites bar, getting those names short enough so that you can get a bunch of them on there. And then step 2 is, okay, now let's start putting some folders up there. And then you can just get these unlimited kind of amounts of space and stuff. That's when they really start to become valuable for you. And when you're migrating from one computer to another with that surgical migration that I was talking about, you want to migrate your bookmarks as well, because those start to become super valuable for you.
Yeah. And, I have friends who use it for DIY projects, for YouTube videos, even though you can have your own playlist. Sometimes you don't want to go to YouTube. You just want to bookmark that sucker and just go straight from there in your Chrome. Some use it for recipes. So you can use it for whatever you want if they're in a similar folder, and you can, whatever makes sense to you, put it all in a folder. And then if you hover over that folder, you can see what's inside that folder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Photography.
I think probably the most common one that almost everybody wants to have is a finance folder. So all the places that they go to pay their bills, check their credit cards. So I actually have a finance folder, and I have a, other accounts folder, because not everything is necessarily finance, like when I'm going across the bridge, my good to go account. It's not exactly finance, but those are the things that I am constantly going to in my bookmarks.
And the nice thing about the folders too is that you can also have subfolders. So if you have a finance folder, you can do online bill pay, you can do credit card payment, you can have investment account, just whatever. So if they fit generally under finance, you can still have subfolders that still break it down a little bit more for you, depending on what you want to do for that.
Yep. Thank you, Dana. That was awesome. Well, yeah, I recently introduced someone in my BNI group to the idea of folders, and it just blew her mind. She was like, "Oh my gosh, you have no idea how much time you've just saved me at work. Thank you, thank you." So I hope that this has done that for you a little bit. All right, we are on to Anthony, who is going to tell us a little bit about tabs, one of the most popular and favorite features of a web browser that almost all of us use, but some of us don't know about yet. So. Anthony, what have you got to tell us about tabs?
Yeah, let's get to it. So I'm going to share my screen, and so here we are. And let's see, can I move this out of the way? Let me move that. So here is my browser. I'm using Windows. I tried to make my screen a little bit bigger for everybody, so hopefully you can see it a little bit better here. So you can see here's my tabs. Oh, here's my favorites bar, and I've got some folders. They're long. They've got lots of stuff in them. It's exactly what Dana was just talking about. I like to organize those, but let's talk about tabs. So I have a lot of tabs open up here. And what are tabs? Well, before we had tabs, if you wanted to view multiple web pages at once, you had to have multiple browser windows open, and it was annoying, and they cluttered up your taskbar down here or your dock if you're on an Apple computer, and it was just kind of a pain to organize. So at some point, the web developers got smart and introducced tabs. They're basically just multiple web pages that you can have open in one browser window at any given time. So, I have a new tab here. This is probably what you guys see a lot. If you hit this little plus, that's how you start a new tab. And most people have a million tabs open. A good way to talk about what tabs are is what they're not. And tabs are not bookmarks. They're not a great way to save a web page. They are open temporarily on your computer in your browser. And when they're open, they're actually using computer resources. You have them open and your computer is thinking about them. So right now, I have our YouTube channel open. So there's me talking about tabs. I have this other web page open. I have Facebook open here. Here's our website. Here is something I was looking up earlier. And then I thought I had Skillshare. So let me put Skillshare back on here. So this web page is open now, and it's playing a video. It's playing an animation here. So if I'm going back to, say, my web search, and I want to keep doing my research or whatever I was doing, this is still playing. All these animations are still playing. This video is still playing. If you might even notice the sound icon, which means there's sound. There's an actual video playing from this tab. All of these tabs are using resources while they're open, which is a good thing if you are if you're actively doing research and you're actively thinking about all of these things, and all of these things are related, and you're looking things up while you're making reservations, while you're doing this and doing that. It's great to have all these tabs open. But this isn't the way to save your web page. And if you're not using it, it's a good it's a good habit to close them once you're done with them. Try to keep your tab usage to a minimum. I believe that people aren't the best multitaskers, even though we like to think that we are. I certainly am not the best at multitasking. And when I have a billion tabs open, I get distracted. My attention gets torn into different places. And sometimes I'll find that I have multiple tabs open of the same web page even. Because I've gone back so many times, and I know this happens to many of our clients where they'll have, 50 tabs open of the same web page, because that's how you're used to getting there. So that's what they aren't. They're not a good way to save. If you want to save, bookmarks are the way to do it. But so why do you want to use them? Well, like I said before, it's a lot easier to navigate from one web page to another when you're using tabs than having a new web page open. It saves on clutter and keeps everything in a nice little box. And it's great for multitasking if you're doing, if you're, say you're trying to book a hotel and book a flight, you're going on vacation and you're looking at places to go and places to eat, and you want, one web page showing you all these really cool restaurants and destinations, while this other one's showing you the hotels in that area. It's great. Those are good reasons to use tabs. And what's bad about them, like I said before, using resources that, if I leave this open, this video is playing. These are open web pages, so while they're open, like this one is static, so it's not downloading anything at this current moment. But there are some of these, like Laura was saying earlier, that have animations playing, that have videos playing, that have ads going on. And even when you're not looking at it, your computer is still using those resources, is still downloading that information, is still receiving ads and all of those things. So it's good to have them closed once you're done with them. And so there are some nifty little things that you can do with tabs. So let's say you do want to save some of these. So this is, I'm a student, so this is my school platform. And say I wanted to save this and keep it here. I don't want to make a bookmark in this instance. I can pin it. And what this will do is it'll make it smaller. It's still a tab. It's still there. It's still living in the corner, but it's much smaller. And all of that extra text that was there was gone. So you can see, how this one says Tech Support Tuesday. This one says Art Station. All of that's gone now. Which is a good way to condense your tabs if you do have a lot open and you do need to leave them open for whatever reason. But it's so it lives here, and you can pin these. You can have as many pinned as you want, and it will condense them down. Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify, when you bring up the menu for pinning, is that a left click or a right click?
Yeah, sorry. So I am right clicking here, and this will give you a bunch of different options. So you can make a new tab from this. You could duplicate a tab if you wanted to, which is something that's useful. You can unpin it, or you could even mute it. So let's say right now I have this tab open and it's playing sound. I could mute that site, so it's no longer playing sound, and it's not bothering you while you're looking.
And by the way, for those of you with a magic mouse that has only one button, the equivalent of left click is you hold the control key and you click. Okay, so you can do the same thing. Now, Anthony, tell me if I'm misunderstanding this, but I thought when you pinned a tab that it no longer used resources in the background the way that regular tabs do, that it was pretty much like a visual bookmark. Am I wrong about that?
So I think it's a mixture of both, because you can see I have the YouTube pinned here, and it's still playing a video. It's still producing sound. It's still going to be using resources. It's not just a bookmark, so it is actively doing a little bit more. It's not the same as just leaving it. I mean, I have this same page here bookmarked, but it's not open. It's not playing any videos. It's not downloading any resources. It's not updating or anything like that. If you leave it up here, it will still continue to do that.
Even when you're navigated away from it, it won't stop.
No, and I mean, it's still here. So if I unmuted this, and left it going, I mean, it's still playing.
You can, okay, got it.
Yeah, so if I go to Skillshare, I liked this website because it had this video playing here, and it's pinned already. But if I navigate away from it and I go back to it, the video has progressed. It's not stuck on the last frame that it was at. If I go back, it's doing something different.
Okay.
So it's still using resources. The ads are still playing. All that pinning really does in this case is condense it down. So you can have more tabs open. But each time you have a tab open, like we were talking about earlier, with that short-term RAM memory, you are using it. Every tab uses a little bit more of that, and depending on what's going on in that tab, it uses more and more. So having lots of tabs open can slow down your computer, especially on Chrome, which is notorious for being a little bit more computer resource hungry than the other web browsers.
Now, I don't know if this is the way pin tabs work in Chrome, because I hardly ever use them in Chrome. I do use them in Safari. And in Safari, when you pin a tab, if you close your entire web browser and you open it up again, those pin tabs stay there, kind of like a bookmark. Is that the way they work here in Chrome too?
Yeah, so they will, and this is actually a good thing to showcase. So I'm actually going to unpin some of these so we can see what happens. So I have 4 of them pinned. I have 2 of them not. I'm going to close. Now, if I open this back up, they actually didn't. None of them actually came back, and this might be because I have another window open technically that I want to keep open. But if you ever do open up a new window and your tabs are gone, there's always this nice little feature here. So if you click on these 3 dots over in the corner, in the upper right hand corner, you will find a couple items down is history. And the first item in history is usually recently closed, and it'll say, oh, 6 tabs. If I click on this, I'm back to that window that just closed. So all of those tabs that I had pinned, plus these ones here that I had not pinned, they're all back. And you could see that they were all thinking, they were all re-downloading all of that information that they had. This is still playing. This is still playing. So I'm not sure if there's a difference between the pinned on the Mac and the pinned on the PC, but these, as far as I'm aware, pinning them really just makes them smaller, just so that you could fit more and not have the clutter of these. And they also stay up in the front. They'll tile up
on the upper left,
up in this corner. Yeah.
Any questions about tabs? No? We taught you everything.
Actually, I just tested it.
Yeah. And?
I tested it on one of my other profiles, and it does reopen with the new tabs. But I think you're right. Yes. And I think you're right, Anthony, that it didn't reopen with the new tabs because of your other window that's open.
Yeah, if I had closed both of my windows, right now I have 3 windows open, but if I had closed them all and then reopened, it would show me what I had, the last window that I had, it would bring all that back up. But since I have multiple windows open, it thinks I'm doing other things, and so it didn't save for me. But yeah, Dana is absolutely correct.
Okay. Well, I think that's all that we have time for today. Raise your hand if you learned something today about web browsing. Yes, Al? Yes, Pat? And Doug, it looks like maybe Doug had to leave us a little bit early. Good. That is 100% our goal, that you learn something that's going to help you in the future. So thank you for being here today with Tech Support Tuesday. As always, we're available for tech tutoring. Go to digitalhelpmates.com to learn more about that. And hopefully we will see you all on October 26th at our next Tech Support Tuesday. Okay, take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.